Hello and welcome to another Sonic Lab. We're very pleased to have Andy Mack here from Akai Professional, this time with the MPC X, which is kind of the big brother or sister to the Live, which we did a piece with you. And I must say it's looking pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So what's different?
Well, the thing with the MPC X, this is really the studio hub. This gives you all the ins and outs, so you can really drive all of your external MIDI, CV, modular, and a lot more hands-on control, because it gives you this beautiful OLED display here, so you can really interact with the hardware. So it just makes the whole process of making tracks, not just beats, but actually full-on tracks, a simple process.
So we've got more connectivity, so more MIDI ports.
We got 4 MIDI outs. We've got 2 MIDI ins, 4 MIDI outs.
Right.
We have multiple inputs, so we can drive in mic pre's. We've got high impedance guitar inputs as well. So if you want to just come straight in and actually record your guitar, we can go straight to the audio tracks. We have mic pre's if you want to actually do live vocals. So this really gives you the ability to actually become a singer-songwriter production unit, as well as, like we say, beat making. It covers all the genres.
So it's got the same kind of standalone operation. Yeah. Was it 6 audio inputs?
You've got 4 audio inputs.
4 audio inputs,
yeah, and then 8 audio outputs.
Okay, so
well.
you can split it off and do that for.
And the thing is, I think when you look at the the MPC X and it being a real studio hub, a lot of people are using a lot of outboard as well, so you can actually drive your drums directly into
so
your
for
summon
mixer
mixer
or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, the screen's bigger.
Yeah. So we've got a 10.1-inch screen. So this is the same technology as we're using for Live. So it's multi-gesture as well. So again, if we go through some of these parameters, you can see how responsive the screen is. It's just absolutely beautiful to use, and you can do all these velocity curves and everything. Yeah. So when you're really into the whole production unit and you start using the screen, especially when you're using your grid, you can really zoom in, zoom out, select notes. We can really kind of move our production to a whole new level.
Get pretty tweaky. And we should say that this actually will tilt, and
yes.
we just got it like this because of to stop the reflection of the camera, right?
You got it. You got it.
Wow. Okay. So that makes the workspace a lot bigger, but then also you can't help but notice these. What's that? 16 Q-Link controls. So
let's talk about this. So the OLEDs really do enhance the whole performance of the hardware, and this is not just in standalone mode. This is also when you connect to 2.0 in when you're using your DAW. But we'll go into that a bit later. Now, what this will do for me, this will allow me to, whenever I move around the hardware, it will give me instant access to a number of parameters all the time, so I don't have to keep remapping stuff. So let's say I'm in my drums and I want to start just looking at all my levels, all my send and returns. I can simply just hit shift, parameter, and now I've got all my levels across my program, across all of my banks. So I can instantly change these sounds. But then I want to go to my panning. So now I've got panning instantly. Now we can go to our send and returns, our sends and mutes, etc., etc.
Right.
And then, so that's just one parameter that I can go to all the time. Now, if I go to pad scene, I can now set up my favorite go-tos of what I want to do with my drums. So if I want to do tuning or envelopes, etc., etc., I can always have those as a default all the time to jump to whenever I'm working on my pads.
So it's like a meta controller, effectively.
Basically,
you can access all the parameters you want to anyway, but
yeah.
you can also create custom maps for ones that you might want to get to. Right. Okay.
You got it. And then we can go to programs. So all of your kits or your programs can have a default selection of parameters as well. So again, we can jump through program, pad scene of your custom presets, pad parameters where I've got all my classic go-tos, and it kind of gives you an enhanced mixer facility for that. And then we can go to project, so we can now control all the parameters within your whole project as well at the same time. So it's all one touch as well, one touch to jump between these different parameters.
Wow, okay, so I guess we should rewind a bit and go, have we still got the same storage, same RAM, same kind of stuff going on?
Everything's the same. So we've got 16 gig SSD, you've got all your factory content on there, so you've got your 10 gigabytes of factory content, you've got all your sounds, your clips, your drums, and then you can then you have your SATA storage underneath, so you can put like a 2 terabyte SSD and then bring in all your own content. So, maneuvering content in and out of the MPC X is very, very simple.
And we get the same connectivity over USB, and we can flip it into MPC.
Yeah, we can go
sort of touch mode, I guess.
Menu, straight to the CPU icon, and then straight into 2.0 connectivity. And then we'll talk about that a little bit later, because there's some really nice functions when you're importing third-party plugins and bring them into standalone mode.
So the Q-Link stuff,
Yeah.
Can you use that to send out MIDI controls externally as well? So if I wanted to control external MIDI gear or whatever it may be, is it that flexible?
Yep, so if I go into MIDI and I hook up a MIDI device, I can now actually set this to send out CC messages, so I can control certain parameters of my hardware.
Right, so we're sort of pulling it all together into a sort of central point. I mean, I used the sort of terminology last time. It's kind of like a custom audio computer, but with the full-on MPC kind of aesthetic, right?
And the thing is, you know, the more and more people we've been speaking to, so many people are using external devices. You know, people are still using a lot of external modules, and obviously the land of the modular world now, this really does enhance that whole performance for them. It gives them, like I said, one really powerful hardware sequencer that can bind all of these components together.
So in terms of voices and voice count and stuff, we've got the same sort
exactly
of spec?
the same as on MPC Live.
So which was?
So 64 stereo voices.
Right.
We got 8 tracks of audio when we're running in standalone mode, and 128 on when you're connected to 2.0 MPC. 128 tracks as well for MIDI.
Does that, for MIDI, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we can literally just go through, and then you can see the
If you
track
need any
count.
more than that, then you need to
Yeah,
check your head,
yeah.
I reckon. Okay, so yeah, that was one of the questions that came up from the live. How many MIDI tracks can you sequence
So
with?
if we quickly jump, so if I'm on a standard track, we can go from drum mode here. We can then go into key group mode, so I can drive my keyboard, which is obviously running into the USB.
So that's just USB host mode. 2 ports on this, or is it
2 ports on this. And then we can go into clip launch mode, so we can bring in our clips, which utilizes the time stretching and the pitch shifting algorithms. Then we can go to MIDI mode. Now you can drive obviously the 4 outputs. So depending on what you're running, we can select the port that we're using. We can then select the MIDI channel, and then we can start driving those directly from the keyboard.
Would you need, if you wanted to address all the ports simultaneously, would you need to duplicate tracks, or can you?
No. So each track you would select its own port.
Right,
so
okay.
track 1, track 2. Then we go to CV, which we've hooked up here, and then we can utilize the MPC X's sequencer to be driving the CV.
So that was one thing that was really interesting. This has actually got 8 dedicated CV outputs, right?
Yes.
And I mean, in this mode, we've got it doing the CV and gate, the obvious stuff that we would expect.
Yeah, that's right. So what we've done here, we've just got a tech drum kit playing. So what we can do, we can go to a sequence. We'll pull up some drums, okay, and we can utilize the step sequencer just for this, and we'll just do 2 bars to keep it really, really simple. So we'll go into sequencer, select my pad, and we'll just put in some 4/4, okay, and then we'll put a hi-hat. So now, if we go back to track 1, now we're in CV mode, I can now go to my shift, note repeat, go to bank D, where our octave starts, and now I'll be driving the CV. So now, you see my OLEDs are now mapped automatically to what's going on with my CV. So if we jump between different pad modes, these will always update for me. So now, we can drive the resonance filter.
So what we've got is we plugged into the CV gets the CV outputs 1 and 2, a gate and CV to drive this, and then the third one we've got just going into the filter basically. So you've got real-time control. So if you're recording a pattern, can you record the automation for all that as well?
Yeah. So what we can do, so if you want to change here as well, then let's find a nice point here. Go into our sequencer. Now
Give it a bit more resonance, and then
I'll trigger my automation here. Okay. So we'll put it into automation mode. It goes red. 2, 3, 4. Come out.
Right, so now we've got an automation lane
That's
off.
right.
Okay, so I mean, that's just a fairly sort of basic kind of principle. So you don't just have to have the CV and gates to be just CV and gate. You can actually use them just for general CV control and what have you.
So yeah, so basically what we can do now, if we go into a new track, we can now go back to CV, and then we can set up more ports. So we could go to another port here, say CV port 4, and then start driving more commands directly from the pads. And then again, we can go into automation, go to write, and then we can just write those in as automation as well.
Right, so I mean, up to 8 would give you, I mean, you could have essentially 4 monosynths, or a monosynth and a couple of extra mod buses, whatever it may be, right?
You could be driving a couple of oscillators, we could be driving the resonance, we could be doing the filter, we could be actually doing the envelope, so we can just open the envelope, close it up.
So the output format looks like it's a volt per octave, which is the Eurorack standard format, yeah? And I notice on these, it actually reads out the time.
Yeah, so you can see from 0 up to 5 volt.
Gives you the voltage readout, that's
right.
neat. That's neat. So, I mean, we're not using a mixer here, we're just running this directly into one of the hardware inputs of the MPC,
that's right. So, we can use the inputs to actually monitor in real time as well, which is, again, it's great for live. So, if I play the sequence, we're coming straight out of our rack into input 1, go to audio, so you can see my input coming back in, open up the channel strip. So now I can apply real-time effects. So let's just start off with a delay, okay? So we select an analog delay. Now, as soon as I hit edit, you'll see my OLEDs update instantly.
So the Q-Link is controlling those sort of parameters, right?
So we've got that running, and then let's pull in another effect. Let's go for a flanger or something like that. So let's go for flanger. Sync, edit, updates instantly. So now, width, rate, and then once you've got that running, we could go into XY effects, and now we can start.
Oh, so that's like a master filter on top of everything going on the output.
But I can also apply that to individual tracks as well. But at the moment, I've got it set on.
Right. Okay. So I mean, I'm starting. So essentially, you could be having a sort of massive analog jam along with all the tracks that you might be going in from the pads, from the playback, from all those things, and then bring this in. I guess you could record that as well.
Yeah, we can record the whole thing into an audio track. But I think the thing as well, when you look at all of these different facilities where we're driving modular equipment, we're bringing stuff back in to monitor, we're driving a keyboard just through USB, we've got MIDI outputs for driving external analog, then you've got your clip launching, you have your drums, you have your time stretching and audio tracks. You can do some really compelling stuff in a live environment.
Yeah, I mean, you're really shooting for the this is all you need kind of scenario really here, aren't you?
Yeah, and it's funny because, the more and more people we speak to, especially in the artist world, especially the underground techno scene, they've been looking for something like this for so long where they can actually take out a device like this and use it for a full-on live performance because, we've definitely seen a shift in how people want to make music.
Right, and the interesting thing also is that this being at the centre of things. I mean, I guess I should say now, if you're wondering what we're talking about, check out the MPC Live video that we did with Andy, because that's got all the kind of nuts and bolts of the time stretch and the clip launch and all of that, rather than go all over it again.
And just to touch on a few of those parts, again, if we look at what's happening in our screen now, especially MIDI, using this screen technology, it really does make it so easy to be editing your tracks, shifting notes off the grid if you don't want to work within your quantize, and even back to basics like sample editing. Editing samples in here. As soon as we go into that mode, we've now got Q-Link control here, so we're moving everything with the Q-Links. So we can just speed up all of our workflow by utilizing all of these new functionalities. And then again, as soon as you jump into 2.0 mode, these just become something even more incredible, because now you've got access to all of your plugins. If you're using your fab filters or waves, whatever you're using, you can now use these for actually looking at your EQ curves, threshold, ratio and compression.
Right.
And you don't have to touch the computer. You'll literally just edit, brings up the plugin, and then visual feedback instantly, and then you can just continue producing your music. And then the most amazing thing is as well, if you are in control mode, we can go into this really cool feature which is called bounce to audio. And what that enables me to do is, if I'm using a third-party track, I can instantly bounce that down as an audio pass, and then as soon as I save it as a standalone project, I've got those passes instantly ready to play.
So if you're in MPC mode and you're running that on the computer, say you're running an external set, maybe we could have a look at that.
Yeah, no, let's do so.
So now we've plugged our USB cable in, how do we get into controller mode?
Okay, so it's really simple. So we go to main menu, and we have like a CPU icon here, and we press control mode. And now this will instantly boot up into MPC 2.0.
Looking for computer, found it.
There we go,
right.
Done. So now I've got a project in here, and the great thing about this is if I'm doing something in 2.0, I can utilize my third-party instruments and plugins, and then I can bring them back across into standalone mode.
Right.
And I'll show you how all this works together, but it's it's really awesome. So let's start off with tempos. We'll do 96, and I'll just put a drum track down. We'll do 4 bars.
But you're just controlling the computer.
Yeah, so
right
everything I'm doing is running from my
computer.
MacBook now. So this has all the MP swing running as well, and we can go in and we can shift the notes. We can actually just home in on anything we want to do with the screen, to zoom straight in and really kind of go into the whole beat.
But again, we're actually working on
just working
the audio
on
engine from the computer, right? Okay.
Yeah, we never need to look at it. We just visualize purely on the screen. So I now go to track 2. Now I have a plugin icon now, so I can hit my plugin icon, and now I'm accessing all of my third-party instruments inside my computer. So I can double-click, and it will show me a list of what I have available by manufacturer as well. So come out of here, so I've got a Rhodes up. You can see my grid. Zoom in, and you'll get a piano roll here now. You can see.
Yep.
On there. So now I can just play some chords, and we'll just build up something. So now that's playing there. Again, we can go into the notes, see what we want to do. Track 3, go to track 3 now. Pull up a second instrument. And then we can put some pads down. And again, just use the same concept.
So this is a massive instance that you're now addressing via the computer.
So all third parties. So now we could go back to our drums if we want. Start using note repeat. And just keep adding to your track.
Right.
Now, the cool thing as well, what I'm going to do for a second, I'm just going to mute these instruments for a second. And I'm going to go to my drums. Okay, kind of re-look at my drums. And I'm going to move in. I'm going to change a few of these parts out real quick, so you can just zoom in, erase, simply like that, move back. Or we can just simply use the erase tool, so we can just hit erase here, and then just hold down the pads that I don't want to use and just remove those notes. There you go.
Slightly more melodic there. Yeah, they're cool. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Again,
but again, this is all happening. We're using the MPC workflow, but just this is MPC 2.0 that's running on the hard.
And this is quite important because the hardware has a lot of dedicated controls. So you can either use the dedicated controls or you can utilize the whole touch interface. Yeah. It's up to the user. Now, another thing is everyone uses plug-in effects, compressors, EQs. Now, if we go into our channel strip here and we just double click, you can now see my third parties.
Yeah.
So we go Fab Filter, and let's put a compressor on this. So we'll go down to compressor, select, and now edit. You'll see all my controls, update, and now.
All right, so now so the OLEDs are now showing the parameter now. Oh, okay, and I see on the screen
you'll
there.
See on here.
Yeah.
So now I can listen by ear. I can bring down my threshold, ratio, bring up my attack.
So you're doing these on the beats?
Yeah. Down. Level. Down.
Right.
So having that kind of control with your OLEDs is amazing because I can jump between all these different types of plugins and just visually see everything that I'm doing. So now that's done, I can basically save that out as an audio pass if I like that effect.
Right.
Now, another thing we're going to talk about now is how do I take this project with all of these instruments on and then say I'm doing a gig and I need to be in standalone mode. So it's really, really simple. So we go to our tracks and you can see I've got 2 instruments playing.
Yeah.
I simply just go to my edit and bounce to audio. So now
that's telling the computer to bounce with the part.
Instantly that fast. And what it does, which is really genius, you go back to MIDI and now it's muted the original MIDI part and it's now an audio pass. So I simply go to instrument number 3, just do the same thing, and now that's bounced, muted, and now we're ready to move the track into standalone mode. So all I do, hit this, go to Save As, find my USB that's inside the MPC X. I call it Standalone Transfer, Save As.
So that's saving the project from there via USB onto the USB stick into the MPC.
Yeah. So it's saving all the MIDI. It's actually also saving the instruments that I've used, which are my third parties, but it technically turns them off.
As audio bounces, yeah.
And also as audio bounces.
Right.
So now, if I disconnect, go out of control into standalone mode. Yeah.
So the computer no longer is playing a part in this.
Nope. Computer's going to go to sleep, and MPCX will now reboot into standalone mode. So empty project, menu, browser, then I go to my places where my USB stick is. You'll see a standalone.
So now that's loading all of that stuff into standalone mode. Right. And
That's it.
I mean, what this is doing is kind of, because what we said before when we look at the MPC Live is there's sort of parity between the MPC2 software on the desktop and also what's running inside the MPC.
That's right. Okay. You know, it's very important for people to move from one device over to another because people do use plugins inside the laptop and you can move these very efficiently between hardware. So now this is the same project. Keys.
With the pad,
Now we go through the tracks here. We go to track 2. Which was Velvet, that's still muted, but if we go to audio tracks, you'll now see, maybe on audio track 2, you'll see the bounce. So there's the part.
Right, okay.
And now we can technically time stretch that. So as soon as we hit it, it's warped.
So you could change the tempo?
Yeah, so that's all done now. So we can now go.
Right,
and
cool.
Again, we go to track 3, and you will see the audio pass of the pad.
Right.
So that's how efficient and easy it is to move between 2.0 straight into X or to live and go straight to your gig. And again, you've got access to everything that you already have, but you can really utilize it in a really efficient way.
So then presumably you can start to build up more stuff using in standalone mode. Say we've got this analog synth connected.
Yeah, so as you happen to have that there. So what we'll do, we'll go to MIDI and we can go to CV. Now we're here. Now I can either play this from the pads or we can just, again, use the keyboard and then play over our track. Let's control the input level. So play the track. We can use the controls for the CV as well. So come out of here, go to our controls and CV.
Right, so now you're driving the filter from that.
Yeah. And again, we can just record these parts in. So put it in sequence mode, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then all of our parts are here. You can see straight on the sequencer.
So that's the MIDI that's then controlling the CV, or we could just record that audio back in and have that as an audio track if we wanted as well.
Again, we can record that as an audio pass, we can render it down, and then, you reutilize the CV, whatever we want to do. But you've got so many different possibilities of utilizing audio tracks.
Right.
So, now you've got that, you could bring in a vocalist and she could do some vocal melodies over the top. You could bring a guitarist in, you've got everything.
So the bounce track that we've got, does that go towards the ultimately the 8-track count maximum, or is it part of the 64?
No, that's part of the 8-track.
Right,
so as you can see here, audio track 1 is not being used. I'm just using that as a monitor. So we can go through 3 and 4. But
we should reiterate that those 8 voices Or those 8 audio tracks are just part of the total amount of voices that you can play, which would be samples.
64. That's right. You got
Okay.
it. So that's covering a hell of a lot of what MPC X can do. But you can see from so many different types of users, they can utilize all these different facilities. So that's going from the 4 MIDI outputs, the 8 CV gates, all the inputs for audio track recording. Then you're bringing in all the time stretching and the pitch shifting for remixing, live performance. And then you can see, we're just touching the surface of what you can do inside MPC 2.0 by utilizing all of your plugins and instruments.
Nice. So, I mean, that's the thing. So, I mean, presumably you could just could you just record a vocal into that and then have someone sing on top of it and track it in a kind of traditional way?
You've got 2 mic pre's, so you can run phantom power, so you can literally just run vocal straight in. And I think also a lot of people do remixing and stuff as well, so you can pull in vocal acapellas, which is really, really easy. Then you can really utilize the screen technology and chop up all the vocal parts and everything. So if we just play that back, we've now got our CV in there for the bass line. So we can play with that if we want. We can record that as all automation as well.
So the filter's being modulated via the other CV control, right?
So then we go to vocal, edit audio. So now there's my audio track.
It's one I recorded earlier, obviously.
Yeah, this is one that Nick recorded earlier. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we can move this around our timeline very easily. So I'm just going to chop the front of this, and then I'll use the magnifying glass. We'll just zoom in. I reselect the audio, and then I can use some of these commands at the bottom. So I'm just going to do edit start point. So I can either do that by the quantize, so it snaps, or just don't snap.
So you get kind of tweaky.
Yeah, so you can move that right there. Zoom in, that's fine. And then decide where it's going to snap to the grid. So now come back out, move this across here, and I'm going to move this probably about there. Baby, I just don't get it. Now, as soon as I click this, we can put it into warp. So I can now warp this in real time. So it's just going to time stretch to the original BPM of what the track is. I'm just going to go back to here, going to mute that for a second, go back to audio, select. Baby, I just don't get it. Do you enjoy being heard? So it's really easy to literally time up vocals. And then what I'm also going to do as well, I'm going to go to turn that off, go back to edit audio, select, pick a region. And again, I'm snapping to the regions. I'll take the first region and then I'll pitch shift this whole section down, which is happening a lot in like future bass tracks and everything. So now.
That sounds more like me.
Yeah, there we go. So we might just want to take that one section from the vocal. So select, and now we can go copy. Goes orange, and we can move this to.
Oh, so we're cutting and pasting to another point, so we can repeat that phrase.
Press enter, and again we can move it along. And then we can then go into effects, double click, go down. We'll use the classic combination we did today of some delay, updates. When we go into program, scene control.
And now we've got the Q links for doing the parameters of that.
There we go, and then we close out of that. Double click. We'll go to the flange, which is down here. Sync, select, edit, update, and then.
It's a hit.
It's a hit. Here we go. So, I think this covers, an awful lot. We've gone from building up a track standalone, using CV, utilizing MIDI, using the drums on board, going to 2.0, moving projects across, then utilizing all of these components again, and then bringing audio tracks and effects, and we're doing all this in real time. So,
and even when the computer was hooked up, you weren't really looking at that at all.
No, you don't. You don't need to be looking at the computer. This is the whole purpose of why you've got a screen like this, because it becomes an instrument. It really does, because you are engrossed in creating the music and not worried about what notes you're dropping in using the mouse. And all the artists that we've seen, that it's funny because the MPC X is something that they all want want to utilise in their studio, because it makes the whole process of making music creative again.
Right. So, I mean, this guy and the live, are they coming around about at the same time? Is that the plan now? What's the...
Yeah, roughly. Live is hitting first, and this will follow just after.
Right,
so
okay.
It's
and presumably 2.0, MPC 2.0 will drop at the same time as live, yeah?
That's right, you
Okay.
got it. So everything we've shown you today will happen on the same with live, all the same functionality, all the same features. The only thing you obviously don't get with the live is the extended MIDI outs and the CV.
So this guy is presumably going to be more expensive than the live because it's got a bigger screen and more hardware, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So you're looking at $15.99 for the MPC X.
UK pounds, yeah?
UK pounds, that's it.
Okay, cool. And presumably going to be available simultaneously worldwide and all of those great things, right?
Yep, that's exactly it. Very in demand. So it's not long now before these will be in the shops.
Okay, so we're now going to play out. We're going to add another synth into the mix and
Yep.
do some sort of other magic business with it. And hopefully we'll see you in the charts, right?
Yeah, well, hopefully, yeah.
Anyway, thanks very much for watching. Thank you very much to Andy
Cool.
Mack for coming down. We'll see you next time.